Why bother hiring more talent when you already have the best person for the job? That is what filmmakers have been saying since at least 1937, when Ronald Colman played opposite himself in The Prisoner of Zenda, as English gent Rudolf Rassendyll and his distant relative, King Rudolph V. And the trend of doppelgangers, doubles, clones, and twins lives on. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 10 mind-bending films where actors play opposite themselves. Number 10. Us. First-time director Jordan Peele crashed onto the horror scene in 2016 with the critically lauded Get Out, and managed the unthinkable 3 years later by following it up with the equally stupendous Us. The film takes us into the world of Adelaide Wilson, played by Lupita Nyong'o, as she holidays with her family in the beachfront community where something strange happened to her as a child. Her trauma hangs over every moment, and as Adelaide grows concerned that something bad might be on its way, a family of doppelgangers descend on the Wilsons' holiday home. An anomaly even in the world of doppelganger movies, just about every named character in Us has a mute, tethered underworld opposite, played by the same actor. But it is Nyong'o's lead performances that stand head and shoulders above the rest, as she contends with a double who can not only speak, but has quite the bone to pick. The two face off in technically challenging and improbable ways throughout, and the feeling of our stomachs dropping out at the film's conclusion is matched only by the headache of trying to figure out how Peele and company manage such an intimate performance between an actor and herself. Number 9. Mickey 17. Since his Twilight days, Robert Pattinson has been up for pretty much anything, working on smaller projects with Claire Denis, David Cronenberg, Robert Eggers, and the Safdie brothers. You name it, the stranger, the better, while still polishing his blockbuster image in the likes of The Batman and Tenet. So it made sense for him to marry his love of odd parts and weird voices with his leading man cred for Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17. A film that, while sadly disappointing for its lack of individuality and innovation, did do a good job of showing Pattinson's talents. Our Pat plays Mickey Barnes, an unfortunate young man who signs up to be a grunt worker aboard an intergalactic mission headed up by a despotic Mark Ruffalo, where he is subjected to jobs and experiments posing significant risk to his life, and is reprinted when he dies. But each subsequent Mickey has his own unique personality, and when number 17 accidentally survives, he has to contest with 18 for the right to survive. And Pattinson plays the parts perfectly, managing two thoroughly different personas side by side who, after getting their enmity out of the way, stray into the kind of territory Cronenberg would be proud of: group sescapades, alien experiments, and revolution. Number 8. Moon. Long before director Bong's Mickey 17, Duncan Jones was exploring the wacky world of space-bound expendable clones in Moon. Sam Rockwell here plays Sam Bell, the sole attendant of Serang Station, a high-tech facility on the far side of the moon designed for mining helium-3, which is Earth's latest alternative fuel after the oil stores have run dry. He also has an AI companion along for the ride called Gertie, who, in a twist on genre classic arch-villain HAL 9000, is actually fairly helpful and well-meaning, seeking to keep Sam safe, well, and thriving. With just a fortnight until the end of his 3-year work contract, he is counting down the days, eager to get home to his wife and their young daughter. However, after a fateful accident, Sam discovers he is one of many clones that his employer has been using to avoid the cost of training and transporting new astronauts, and that it has been some 15 years since he first arrived. Eesh. So from there, Rockwell plays several different versions of Sam who come into contact with each other and must band together in an effort to get at least one of them off base and back to Earth. And all of this managed on a $5 million budget with no major studio backing. It's a modern classic. Number 7. Enemy. Denis Villeneuve may now be best known for mega-budget sci-fi epics like Dune and Blade Runner 2049, But not so long ago, the Cubicore director was making small, thought-provoking features that challenge viewers to do a lot of the narrative and conceptual legwork ourselves. Nowhere is this ethos more apparent than in Enemy, which takes superstar Jake Gyllenhaal and puts him in post as quiet, unsuspecting college professor Adam Bell, whose ordinary life is impinged on by the discovery of his lookalike. Gyllenhaal plays opposite himself as actor Anthony Clare, who discovers Adam's attempts to delve into his life and seizes the opportunity to blackmail him into a one-night-only wife swap that ends in chaos and disaster. Enemy uses its identical main characters to explore Adam's self-identity, his wish fulfillment, and his projection of a life he'd never led. The actor with the motorbike who attends underground sex clubs. And while his ability to ingratiate himself into this life after Anthony suffers a fatal accident suggests something of the film's thematic concerns, the final image of a gigantic, cowering spider where his new wife ought to be leaves a lot more to ponder. Number 6. The Double. Few pre-postmodern writers, save for Franz Kafka, pair deeply psychological work with deadpan absurdism better than Fyodor Dostoevsky, and his 1846 novella The Double is a perfect example of the form. Fitting, then, that habitually kooky and deadpan writer/actor/annoying advert man Richard Ayoade chose to adapt it for the big screen in 2013. Featuring Jesse Eisenberg as a downtrodden office employee, driven to the edge of a breakdown by his doppelganger, who casually usurps his life. Eisenberg stars as Simon James, an awkward office grunt whose life is slow and vacant, lacking meaning beyond the routine work that he performs. But while his existence is tedious and unrewarding, it really begins to unfold at pace after James Simon, his charismatic, confident lookalike, takes a job at his office and sweeps Hannah, played by Mia Wasikowska, the woman Simon has had his eye on for a long time, off her feet. The dual role not only highlights the inadequacies of modern life, but allows Eisenberg to play both to and against type, revolving around himself in traditionally creative shots, while the narrative brings Simon and James into a near-fatal tailspin that forces the former to finally become his own man. Number 5. Men. The most abundant of all doppelganger cinema, Alex Garland's Men stars Jessie Buckley as Harper Marlowe, a recent widow who escapes to the country in an effort to get a bit of breathing space from London life and forget about her husband's apparent suicide, which she witnessed following a fiery argument. Things start off simply enough, with toothy holiday home landlord Jeffrey introducing Harper to his quiet village and letting her get her bearings. But Harper's world begins to come unstuck as she explores the local area and discovers that it is populated exclusively by men, all of whom share a single face. That of Rory Kinnear. Kinnear plays every last sinister inhabitant of the village, from the pub goers to the priest to the police to the strange naked man stalking the countryside. I think every town has one of those. And while some of the effects are a little janky, the overall effect is of sheer terror and mounting tension, plunging headlong into a bloody and visceral conclusion. Number 4. Dead Ringers. As mentioned, David Cronenberg loves a bit of strange, and if he can thumb in some body horror in the process, well, then all the better. While far from his most visceral or disturbing film, Dead Ringers nonetheless tacks closely to the Cronenbergian playbook, offering up scientific impossibilities, fever dreams, and descents into personal destruction. Here, Jeremy Irons plays identical gynecologist twins Beverly and Elliot Mantle, whose obsession with female anatomy starts young, but has an unusually scientific bent to it. A smooth-talking philanderer, Ellie uses his position as head of a prestigious clinical practice in Toronto to meet and sleep with women, before switching places and passing them off to his mild-mannered wallflower of a brother, Bev. But this double act comes up against a brick wall when Claire Neveu, an actress with a trifurcated cervix, steals Bev's heart and gets him hooked on prescription drugs. Considering the film's lack of CGI, the seamless pairing of Irons' characters, who live, eat, and work together, is as impressive as their antics are disturbing. And unlike most of Cronenberg's other films, the story is based on the real-life case of twin gynecologists Stuart and Cyril Marcus. Number 3. Suspiria, 2018. Remaking a Dario Argento film is no mean feat. Least of all, remaking his masterpiece Suspiria, widely considered to be the director's best ever film, but Luca Guadagnino pulled it off. Set during the German autumn of 1977 at an exclusive all-female dance academy in Berlin, the film takes us into a world of witchcraft and deception via Dakota Johnson's Susie Bannon, an ex-Mennonite with exceptional talent who feels a supernatural draw to the school. Although Johnson is the protagonist, Tilda Swinton is arguably the star, playing 3 different roles in the film. She is Madame Blanc, lead choreographer of the Marcos Dance Academy, Helena Marcos, the institution's mysterious matron, and Dr. Joseph Klemperer, a psychologist who is doing his best to expose a nefarious coven controlling the academy. Mirrors are present throughout the film, and yet despite the unpacking of multiple selves, as Susie arrives at her spiritual destiny, becoming Mother Suspiriorum, Swinton's characters have precious little screen time together, each representing, in character and disposition, different vertices on a triangle of opposing ideologies. Nonetheless, this is one of the most intriguing and accomplished examples of an actor inhabiting multiple parts, as unless you have a really keen eye, it's all but impossible to tell that anyone but Blanc is Swinton, with prosthetics and performances rendering each character distinctive and unique. Number 2. The Prestige. The midpoint of Christopher Nolan's work, at least in terms of scale and overall filmmaking approach, The Prestige offers up big stars and spectacle, with Nolan's trademark narrative puzzles while remaining surprisingly down to earth. Foregoing the extreme stunts and sets the director has of late become known for. Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman star as warring magicians, whose desperate need to upstage and outdo each other turns, well, a bit sinister and dark. Their lives' work becoming their folly in a deadly game of one-upmanship. And it is a hotbed of doubles and duplicates too, with both lead actors playing at least 2 different versions of themselves. Bale plays Alfred the Professor Borden, a man whose mute assistant Bernard Fallon turns out to be his twin brother in disguise. An arrangement that allows them to swap and switch and perform some seemingly impossible tricks. Jackman, meanwhile, plays the aristocratic magician Lord Caldlow, masquerading as Robert the Great Danton Angier, as well as Gerald Root, a drunk that the magician uses as his double in his trick, The New Transported Man. But Jackman also plays several more versions of himself farther in, identical clones produced by the machine Nikola Tesla creates for him, and whom he secretly kills nightly as part of his real transported act routine. A lesson in technical wizardry, as well as sacrifice, secrecy, and obsession, The Prestige uses duplicate performances to straddle its core theme of duality in all its moral complexities. And number 1. Adaptation. Directed by Spike Jonze and written by metafiction maestro Charlie Kaufman, Adaptation is about as mind-bending as lookalike movies can possibly get. Nicolas Cage plays Charlie Kaufman himself, starring opposite Kaufman's fictional twin brother Donald, as they try to adapt to Susan Orlean's The Orchid Thief. Overwhelmed by a pervasive sense of inadequacy, an abiding sexual frustration, and the wants of his freeloading twin brother, Charlie is forced into ever more bizarre situations that stretch the limits of his reality as his life becomes intertwined with the plot of the novel. Thus, the film serves as a fictionalized dramatization of the undertaking of adapting the book, but in the process also functions as a partial adaptation of the book itself, which is itself not just a real book, but also a true story. But of course, this is Kaufman's piece, and he uses the doubling of himself to bed in the off-kilter nature of the whole affair, throwing an additional spanner in the works with increasingly layered levels of metafiction that never fully unravel. And if all that sounds confusing, and to be honest, that's because it is, Cage's expectedly zany dual performance and Jones's playful frenetic directorial style serve only to enhance the strangeness of it all, offering no straightforward answers, but mercifully, a satisfying conclusion. Go watch it if you haven't already.